out how we're going to work together as a team to defeat the enemy.
We knew when they were going on raids, we would support them. Sometimes we go on a raid, they'd support us. We had a complete exchange of intelligence.
And it paid off. We did lots of raids together, scores of them together.
I was in Iraq at the time, and the rumors the American troops were hot on their heels were thick. It seemed like only a matter of time before Saddam would be next, that he had to be nearby.
He is a desperate losing foe, and each day that we press forward, his fate is sealed.
Another raid! Raid!
As raids pick off members of the five families, it feels like the net is closing in.
Thorough search.
But then suddenly the trail goes cold. All the key targets disappear.
We actually executed a raid, missed that individual about 30 minutes. His wife was still pointing down the road in which he fled. And of course, she gave a description of the vehicle. And if you've ever been to Iraq and someone tells you that the individual has just left in a white truck, good luck finding it. Every truck is white out there.
And there's no sign of Saddam. U.S. forces in Iraq are on the trail of Saddam Hussein, but their leads have gone cold. The armed resistance is also strangely quiet.
I think, as I look back on it, they were regrouping. They came back with more sophisticated weaponry, more sophisticated roadside bombs, and in some cases, these surface-to-air rockets that they would employ against helicopters.
Along this road last night near Mosul, another 3 U.S. soldiers were killed.
Another attack on U.S. forces in Tikrit. 3 more soldiers injured.
Approached by fighting vehicles. The driver detonated a bomb, killing himself and the 4 soldiers.
The resistance has a string of major successes against U.S. forces, even shooting down Black Hawk and Apache helicopters.
The impact on a unit, of course, the image in the public's eyes, of course, all those things are things you have to deal with. But of course, first and foremost is the loss of your soldiers and how that affects, fellow soldiers and leaders and units. Fairly traumatic.
The insurgency has moved beyond Saddam's core supporters, taking in other Iraqis and foreign terrorists. Although Saddam has less influence over these men fighting the U.S. forces, he still makes the most of it.
لم ولن يوقف اختلال التوازن الذي أشرنا إليه إلا موقف وفعل المؤمنين المخلصين المجاهدين الذين عملوا وجاهدوا.
When the cassettes came out, they did have an extraordinary impact. You sort of watched Iraqis listening to them, their faces would sort of drain.
لمواجهة الاحتلال ولطرد الغزاة خارج العراق.
There was the same old voice back in business. And it was often the same old rubbish that he was talking, but he was still there. And the Americans hadn't picked him up.
In Washington, the mounting U.S. casualty list is taking its toll on the administration.
They're obviously worried about where this is heading. You've got public support is suddenly going, what is this? I mean, we were supposed to be done with this war back in the spring, and now it's extending into the fall. It's not looking particularly good, and so they're looking to score a victory here.
On a visit to the troops in Tikrit, Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld makes it clear to their commanding officer that catching Saddam is a political priority, whatever it takes.
It's important to, needless to say, the people of Iraq. It's also important to this entire region that we continue and succeed in what it is that you're doing.
And he couldn't understand, with all the money the military was throwing at this problem, all the technical means, why this one man continued to elude the vast, mighty American military.
We had some very candid discussions. He asked me, what is the effect of the money?
Why haven't we got this guy yet? What do we need to do? What more can we give you to get this thing done? What barriers do we have to break down to get them over? I mean, he was very frustrated, I think, from the get-go.
And he said,
the second wave of the insurgency has exposed some of the Army's key targets.
About halfway through October, I made a decision that we were going to use a significant amount of force in order to bring down this insurgency. What we found is the other Iraqis felt more comfortable with giving us information. And that's when we started to have some very significant breakthroughs. That's when we got some very good leads on family members such as the Muslits, the Hadushis, and some other people who are closely related to Saddam Hussein.
One place in particular is becoming a focus for their attention.
All roads seem to lead to Oja. It's where Saddam was born. In meetings that I had there, sometimes it was kind of a who's who of these families. I think we had literally been in and raided 70% of the houses in that village of 3,500. So, it's a significant number of houses.
So Steve Russell orders the entire town to be fenced in. Nobody can get in or out without his say-so.
We got great intelligence windfall from it. We literally disrupted them from their number one wife, their best homes, and their wealth. They had to go live on the orchard or the dirt farm instead, and it caused them to surface in more ways than one.
Interrogations confirm that they're on the right path to getting Saddam. It's a path they've been tentatively following since the summer, when one set of photos in particular had caught their attention. The 42-inch waistband club.
This particular one, it showed Saddam looking like a mafia don with his Hambra, and his big sunglasses, and he had these what clearly looked like bodyguards around him, and I thought, okay, who are these guys? They've got to be somebody important.
Well, you could see from the time early within the regime when these people were hungry and still working hard and doing things, and they were very thin. And all of a sudden, here they are, very comfortable and setting their lifestyle with these huge waistbands. And one day, Colonel Hickey just happened to say, 42-inch waistband. And when you looked at them, I think 42-inch was being kind. I think they were larger.
All these well-fed bodyguards are cousins and brothers from the same family, and new targets for the Raider Brigade.
Soldiers pulled al-Muslit from the house wearing only a t-shirt and his underwear. He was examined by a medic and loaded onto a US Army Humvee.
In November, the 4th Infantry Division is told, find the rest of the al-Muslit brothers, you'll find Saddam. Things are looking up.
And then right before Thanksgiving, things just seemed to go gangbusters.
Get in there,
We're conducting this raid tonight against the low-level leader. Simultaneously south of here in the town of Oja, where we're looking for a more senior member of the former regime.
And we just started to go one after the other, and one would lead into the next one, which would lead into two more, or two simultaneous in different areas, and we just kept snowballing. We gather more information.
We need you to cooperate. If you don't, we will hunt you down and we will kill you.
As they round up the bodyguards, it becomes clear that one of the al-Muslit brothers is much more important than they'd realized. Earlier in the summer, Mohammed had taken over the role of Saddam's chief of staff. By the 12th of December, he is the only one the U.S. forces haven't found.
Roger, good copy. 6 actuals on the job. Something was going to happen over the next couple days or weeks. That was just the sense. It was inexplicable at the time. I don't know if I was frustrated or what, but the next morning, and I didn't sleep well that night.
The next morning, Hickey gets a call from Baghdad. A special forces unit there has found the man he's looking for. Mohammed al-Muslit is under arrest and being rushed back to Tikrit. It's now a race against time to get him to reveal Saddam's hiding place.
Getting that information out of him in a timely fashion was critical, or it would tip our hand that he had been captured, and they would change their way of operating. We'd have to go back and start from square one.
Questions and intelligence briefs flow back and forth between Murphy's team and the Special Forces interrogators. In Tikrit, U.S. forces are being readied for action.
My boss, Colonel Jim Hickey, called the morning of the 13th, and he said, "Steve, I want you to be ready with your entire battalion." He said, "All forces available at a moment's notice." He said, "Do not get bogged down on anything. Be ready to go."
Well, I knew exactly what the mission was then. I mean, so I'm like, "Sir, please do tell." He explained that an individual had been detained, flown into RAO, and was being questioned as to the whereabouts of Saddam Hussein. So I told him, "Sir, we can have the troop here in an hour and a half," and he said, "Execute."
With the troops standing by, everyone waits for the interrogation to reveal their destination. At 5 o'clock, it does. A palm grove to the north of the village of Adwar. It's the very place Saddam had fled to after a failed coup attempt in the 1950s. Every year since then, he has come here to commemorate his swim to safety across the river.
I immediately get on the radio in my Humvee. Final instructions to all the commanders.
As Colonel Hickey.
Has come here to commemorate his swim to safety across the river.
I immediately got on the radio in my Humvee and started issuing instructions.
2. The target, HVT, or High Value Target Number 1, Saddam Hussein. After the Hussein son's violent last stand, Colonel Hickey is taking no chances. He sets off with a force of 600 men and heavy armor. At a nearby grain mill, Hickey's combat troops and special forces make their final preparations.
All my soldiers were out with special ops soldiers, working over the plans, looking at the imagery, and then we all got the thumbs up, and it was time to move out.
At 7:35, the assault forces began to move out. It was completely dark out. Everything was going according to plan.
14th raid, okay, for Saddam Hussein. I can remember telling my soldiers who we were going after and getting the rolling of the eyes and oh boy, here we go. I'm missing a day off or another dry hole raid.
The 2nd Assault Platoon moved in behind me onto their objective at Wolverine 1 in a small hamlet immediately west of Highway 24.
The specific house that we thought, we looked at it, Special Operations Commander was like, "I don't think that's it. We're going to keep going down the road a little bit." And we ended up going, I think, another 300 or 400 meters. And that's when I got the call from them. I said, "This is it."
Back at Operations Command, the intelligence team nervously followed developments on the radio.
everybody was on headphones listening to the operation. And all I kept on doing was praying that nobody would get hurt.
I didn't want to get my hopes completely up and say, this is it. Part of me said, okay, everything makes sense. This is where he should be. We ought to get him tonight.
They called in and said that the objective was secure, there was no resistance, and they continued to search.
Roger, there's nothing here.
So at that point, people were thinking maybe, we were thinking that maybe this was a dry hole.
It's like, man, we were in the right spot. It just took too long. He got word he'd been captured. He's gone. He's hit the land. It's time to go back to work.
But the search is not over. Al-Muslit had also revealed to his captors that Saddam might be underground. In pitch black, Captain Bailey and his Special Forces counterpart now focus in on a small hut on the edge of the palm grove.
I got called from the team leader, and he says, I don't know, it looks like a dry hole. We can't find anything here right now. I said, okay, Roger.
And then one of the soldiers looked down and saw something suspicious on the ground that just didn't look right. Kept looking at it, walked over it a couple times, didn't look right, pulled up on it. Come to find out, it was a mat that had dirt over the top of. Pulled it up, and there was the styrofoam top over the spider hole.
They pulled that up and they saw a man moving at the bottom of the hole. The soldiers who did that realized that the man at the bottom of the hole was trying to surrender.
Red 2, Mr. Red 1, over there.
And he calls up and says, I think we have jackpot. And I can remember looking at my driver and my gunner. My gunner came down out of the hatch and said, sir, what did he just say? I said, you just watch. Just keep looking around. Don't worry about it.
He said, I am Saddam Hussein, the president of Iraq, and I'm willing to negotiate. The rejoinder by the soldier who pulled him out of the hole was, President Bush sends his regards. I don't think he was happy. He was in our control.
I was talking to the special ops soldier specifically. I said, "You're kidding me?" He goes, "No." And he told my platoon leader that his platoon was actually on the objective working with him. They said, "Hey, just smile for the cameras," and they left.
Sergeant Major Wilson walked up and I said, we got him. And he and I shook hands and hugged.
We turned and looked at each other, and really it was sort of silence. We didn't know what to say. It was like, is this it?
HVT number 1. Saddam Hussein has been captured alive with no resistance. His hiding place distinctly unpresidential. In his hut is a locker containing $750,000. Sergeant Major Wilson is dispatched to collect the money from the soldier guarding it.
He said, "Hey, have you ever seen $750,000? I said, "Hey, are you crazy?" So he opened it up, and I saw these stacks of bills, and I'm like, wow. Me and him were the only two there, so I picked it up and, rubbed it on my face and held it for a while,
Word of Saddam's capture is spread among Hickey's key personnel.
He said real quietly, "We got him." And I said, "What?" And that's when he said it again. He said, "We got him," real, not real loud, but in a exclamated voice. And then I went around, "We got him," I was ecstatic.
I received a call from my boss. He said,
I said, "Steve, we got Cesar Romero."
And I knew immediately what it meant. I said, "Oh my God," as I thank God privately. I was stunned by the news.
My soldiers that were working on Wolverine 2, I called them up and said, "Hey, fellas, congratulations. We just caught blacklist number 1, Saddam Hussein." And the first response was, "Yeah, Roger."
I was standing to the side, grateful to be able to watch the announcement.
Ladies and gentlemen,